will control the vertical.
Welcome to Anthologic, the TV anthology podcast. I am your host, Mark. Anthologic is a podcast dedicated to exploring the good, the bad, and the odd of horror, science fiction, and the best of mystery suspense anthology shows and series on TV. Join me as we slip through the cracks of reality to approach the extremes of experience, where we can peruse the stories and art of a sinister fairground of strange and wonderful rides. And now we go on to the show that is the focus of this particular episode. Welcome to this episode of Anthologic with your host Mark. Today we are talking about an Outer Limits episode called The Invisibles. Now this is Season 1, Episode 19. This was directed by Gerd Oswald, written by Joseph Stefano, the one of the main creatives on The Outer Limits. Cinematography by Conrad who'd done several of them before. It was the 20th in production, but the 19th one aired, and it originally aired on February the 3rd, 1964. Wow. This one, the thing is, I don't particularly want to spoil it too much because it's really good. It's a really good one. This is a nightmare fuel episode. The actual creatures in it are slightly silly looking. They're kind of weird crustacean, crabby kind of creatures. And essentially the story is there's a government agency, a government agent who infiltrates this weird sort of power group called the Invisibles. It's much along the lines of, I don't know, the Illuminati or something. There's this weird organisation called the Invisibles, and they think they're up to no good. And essentially they aren't up to any good. They're using these weird parasitic alien creatures that look like crabs to take over bodies of important humans in power in the sort of military-industrial complex. So this is a real paranoia piece. In many respects, it's kind of similar to something like Quatermass 2 or Invasion of the Body Snatchers. It's kind of got that vibe. It's riffing on both of those in many respects, but this really delivers a fairly paranoid and intense episode of TV. Essentially, they're using nobodies, men who are on the periphery of society, to help sort of do the dastardly deeds. And what the idea is, these men who are nobodies have to be inoculated to be able to do their job, which is set up the transmission of the alien parasite onto a host, an identified host, an important person basically, and they have to be inoculated because the parasites are fairly unintelligent. They'll latch onto anything they can, so inoculation prevents them trying to latch on to the people, delivering them to the people they should be delivered to. That's the kind of the story, and it's the process of inoculation is a fairly intense and visceral one too. Now, one of the reasons the episode works is the sound design. The creatures make this horrible kind of growling, sort of screeching noise, and it infiltrates the whole episode. And it kind of is kind of upsetting. It's kind of upsetting to your senses. And that's, I think, one of the reasons. The soundscape on this episode is as important, if not more important, than any other aspect of it. There's a kind of feel to it that really, really ups the intensity. So in many respects, in my opinion, this delivers a more visceral and frightening experience than, say, something like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, because it's so concentrated and intense. We see the effect of, for example, an inoculation going wrong. It creates sort of distortions in the body of the person that taking the inoculation. So we know these things are horrible and dangerous. Now, there's some great performances in this. One notable one, which is one of the sort of leaders who or it appears to be one of the leaders or a leader of this Invisibles, is they recognise him as a certain politician but he doesn't want to be named. But it's played by Neil Hamilton. Neil Hamilton was the actor that went on to play Commissioner Gordon, the sort of avuncular character in the Batman series, the 60s Batman series. But in this, he's a much darker, intense sort of character, and he does a really good job. I was quite surprised. In fact, I didn't realise it was him at first because he acts so differently, and he's a bit younger than that series, only a little, but it just comes across quite different. And being in black and white too, he kind of just looks different. His hair's dark, for example. And basically, it's about these sort of these guys who, drifters who are sort of inveigled in this. I feel like part of it, but it turns out one of them's an agent. For something called the GIA. Apparently the CIA didn't want to be... You have to get all sorts of permissions to use things like CIA in TV episode named in a TV episode back when this was made. So they just decided that by converting it to the GIA. So he's an agent for the GIA. And apparently this episode had a lot of trouble with the censors. The TV censors really didn't like it, but they couldn't put their finger on where the cut could be made to sort of soften it in any way. Because I think I can see why it seeps through the whole episode. It really, really does. This is a really terrific episode of The Outer Limits, it has to be said. And it's kind of also the opening and closing narration. It's really about the men being affected. The opening words for the episode are, "You do not know these men. You may have looked at them, but you did not see them. They are newspapers blowing down a gutter on a windy night," and so on, and so on. So it's about these men who, it's kind of implied they're trying to join something that will have them, and this Invisibles organisation is kind of a home to them, even though it's kind of just exploiting them. And then the closing narration ends with, "You do not know these men. You may have looked at them, but you do not see them." And so on. It's slightly different. The words are different. I don't want to get into it too much. But essentially, the power of repetition comes in here. This is really about the men who are helping this powerful secret organisation. This is a metaphorical tale. This could be about any power group within any government or country. Could be a company doing secretive things that really shouldn't be there. It could be a government group, or indeed a government being secretive and hiding things from the people to try and further their own power. It's a very sort of standard thing. Read 1984. That's a kind of place to read about the nature of power and so on. This is one of the highest rated episodes on a website called TVcom. This is the third highest rated episode of The Outer Limits, behind Demon with a Glass Hand and The Man Who Was Never Born. Both excellent episodes. So it's really, really well considered. And I have to say, there's some great performances in it. For example, I've already mentioned Neil Hamilton, but the main one is a guy called Spain, played by Don Gordon. Don Gordon, you may recognise him. He's been in a few movies like Papillon and Bullet, and in a lot of 60s TV too. So you may recognise him, you may not. But Neil Hamilton is probably the most significant one. There's another chap, I can't remember his name. He's called Castle, I believe, in this. Is it? He's got. He always tends to play English or Irish characters in TV and movies, American TV and movies, and he's got a distinctive look. I'm sure I can picture him quite clearly playing a leprechaun, for example. So there is him as well. So really solid episode. Really, really solid episode. Very enjoyable. Quite tense and quite disconcerting as well. Mostly helped by its soundscape, as I'll say. There's also some imagery which is quite stark. Some great shots too. The black and white in this is used to great effect. The shadows as well. Used to great effect in this. So high recommend for this episode from me. So that's it from me. But before I go, may I ask, is there anybody out there?
I'm not.
We now return control of your television set to you until next week at this same time, when the control voice will take you to